All right, so now we're going to access some really interesting and important reporting features for single assessment reporting. So once you've found your assessment, you'll click Reports. At the top, you'll click Generate Reports. And on the left here are all the different ways that you can view student data according to your needs. So we'll start off with a really basic way to view data. So this is the alphabetical results. So here you can see all of the students who have taken this exam, what their final scores were, and it's a really simple, easy way to codify your data. So going into the other features, you'll click View Reports. And for example, we'll start with frequency distribution. So here you can view the frequency of scores and how spread out your score totals were. So you can see the number of students that achieved a certain score. So you might see 2 students who achieved a 91%, 3 students who were at a 60%, etc. So this is really helpful in while the alphabetical list might be a really clear-cut way to identify student scores, this might be a more visual way of seeing where your class is at in terms of how they all did on the particular assessment. So if you click View Reports at the top again, we'll go back to this list. You can select Response Distribution, and this is how you can view the distribution of answers to performance-based questions. So this can be really helpful in identifying how a majority of students did on a particular PBA. And if you find trends that are varied or kind of alarming in terms of how students did on a PBA, it can help you evaluate whether teacher instruction is the route and needs to be adapted to particular students or the class as a whole, or perhaps whether or not the question itself is set up to truly gauge student knowledge for ultimate success. So that's another feature. We'll go back to View Reports, and if you go down to the middle and you select Item Analysis by Learning Objective, here you can see the number of students who have mastered a given learning objective as assigned to this question. So we'll start at the top, the Common Core Math Standard MP6 Attend to Precision. So the expected mastery is 85% of students will have mastered the standard. But for this section and this assessment, only 55% have mastered this objective. And it gives you an item list as well to make it a bit easier to look at specific standards. And again, this can be a really influential way of forming interventionist groups or student groups, which we'll also talk about in a minute. So an even better way to assess student data from an assessment and then create student groups or interventionist groups so that you can adapt your instruction on a group-by-group level. You'll go back to Reports and click Learning Objectives Mastery. So here you can view what percentage of students fall into each achievement level. As you can see right here in the middle, prove theorems about parallelograms. The expectation was that 85% of students will have met this standard, but in reality only 48% have met the standard, which is obviously far from proficient. So when you're reviewing your student data, what you can do for a given standard. So for example, for the second standard that's listed, prove theorems involving similarity, we're going to select far from proficient, which is the groups of students that are essentially under the academic warning group because they are far from proficient in this standard. So from here, you can see all of the students that may benefit from an intervention of some kind. So once you've identified what groups of students you want to select for a particular group that you might be making, you'll scroll all the way to the bottom, and if this makes you dizzy, look away for a minute. Okay. All right, so once you have selected your students to the left that you decide you want to create it within a single student group, you can go ahead and select Create Student Group. And what that will enable you to do is to then track the development and the growth of that particular intervention student group that you've created within Mastery Manager. So it is a really, really important and influential way for you to accurately track student development. And this is, of course, especially important for students who are within an academic learning group who need to raise their proficiency with certain standards. So we'll go back. So it's really important to remember within these single assessment reporting features that these different types of analysis can help you review assessment specifics. So if certain questions or thematic subject areas are areas of struggle for your students, you can see these from these reports and adapt instruction accordingly. And on the flip side of that, if your students are excelling comparable to other sections or schools, you and administrators can view that too. So through these filter reporting options, teachers can adapt their instruction by evaluating subject weakness or areas of need within their classrooms or sections. And beyond that, administrators can then view whether or not a teacher has been proactively engaging with their student data and adapting their instruction as a result, hence being able to make student groups. But remember too, most importantly, that aligning standards to questions within an assessment is the only way that you can take advantage of learning objective reports such as these. So in the first walkthrough video, when we looked at how to assign standards to questions, that must be done on assessments where you and administrators want to accurately track student development and the student data that comes with assessments. So it's very important that you utilize that feature first and foremost so that you can then take advantage of the learning objective reports that we've shown you here.